Tenet was one of my most awaited movie of the year, and when most of the big production houses decided to push their movies to 2021 or release them on online platforms due to the pandemic, it definitely became my most awaited movie of the year. And I knew कि थिएटर में जाऊंगा तो इसी मूवी को देखने जाऊंगा. Tenet is written and directed by Christopher Nolan, who doesn't really need any introduction. इस मूवी के प्लॉट का ब्रीफ सिनॉप्सिस विदाउट स्पॉयलर्स देना थोड़ा मुश्किल है, but I will try my best. The movie follows our protagonist who is sent on a very unconventional spy mission across the world and across the timelines to basically prevent World War III and the end of the world. Nolan की movies हमेशा से ही mind bending रही हैं. He is the master of making stories that dwell and thrive on concepts unheard and unimagined by anyone else and showing them with the most grandeur possible on the screen. And Tenet is trademark Nolan. मूवी को देख के ही समझ आ जाता है कि नोलन की मूवी है और किसी की हो ही नहीं सकती. It's hard to believe that a director who has sci-fi mind-bending movies like Inception and Interstellar in his catalog can outdo himself. But Nolan has done exactly that with Tenet. Tenet is easily the most complex of all of his movies and will leave many of the viewers scratching their heads. मतलब घंटों नहीं दिनों तक सोचना पड़ेगा इस मूवी के बारे में, and there is a big chance that things will still remain unclear. But first things first, Tenet is movie making brilliance. It's technically exquisite. Every frame, every sequence is extremely well crafted for the screen. Nolan emphasizes on using practical sets for his massive scenes instead of being too reliant on VFX, and that makes his movie scenes so much more beautiful, so much more realistic. Nolan's cinematic mastery and his grip on technical aspects of filmmaking have transcended the highest norms, and in Tenet, he is in top form for the most part. The movie introduces a concept of time inversion where the objects, instead of moving forward in time, move backwards. You got a glimpse of it in the trailers, but seeing it on the big screen was an experience unlike anything else. There are fascinating car chase scenes where there are some vehicles moving forward in time while others move inverted in the same sequence. There are fight scenes where a man moving forward in time has to fight a man moving backwards. And then there is this spectacular military raid scene at the climax where all the rules are dialed up to 11. Even talking about this makes me wonder how the hell Nolan was able to show this in his movie. But he did. Oh boy, he did. The cinematographer of the movie, Hoyte van Hoytema, was somehow able to showcase Nolan's crazy, almost preposterous vision with such fine cinematography work that it's almost hypnotic at times. There are these mad scenes and moments where Hoyte and Nolan just immerse the viewers in their world with breathtaking, ravishing cinematic magic that just needs to be experienced. The stunning display of the screen is matched evenly by the great music given by Ludwig Göransson. I read and heard many people complain about the bad sound mixing in the movie, where the sound effects were too loud to listen to the dialogues. But in my viewing, I didn't find that problem. There were a few scenes here and there, but they didn't affect my movie watching experience. I guess they remixed the sound in this version which was released in India. I'm not really sure about it though. Talking about the acting in the movie, it is solid all along. John David Washington plays the lead known as just the protagonist, and he has done a good job. I felt that the script didn't demand very much out of him when it comes to acting. That's why his role didn't feel anything special to me. I think it was adequate, although I think he could have played more with his facial expressions. Robert Pattinson, who plays Neil, who is an associate of the protagonist in the mission, also has a similar kind of role, but I thought he did a much better job and was able to give an extremely charming performance. He finds a great balance between his character's playfulness and seriousness. Elizabeth Debicki plays Kat, who has been given the most emotionally resonant character in the movie. She's like the heart of this technical machine, the character that brings some humanity to the madness, and she has done an amazing job in her role. Kenneth Branagh plays Satyr, the big bad of the movie, and he is also extremely convincing in his sometimes over-the-top performance. It was extremely satisfying to watch Dimple Kapadia give a great performance in this movie. She plays the character of Priya, which was a key puzzle piece in this jigsaw. I have no real complaints with the acting performances in the movie. सबने स्क्रिप्ट के हिसाब से अच्छी परफॉर्मेंस दी है. Problem ये है कि Tenet is a movie that is very plot heavy, and all the characters in it get extremely overshadowed by the magnitude of the story. We don't know anything much about most of the main characters in the movie and their individual stories. We have no idea about who the protagonist is and why we should care about him. There is this romantic angle that he is involved in, but it was very unconvincing for me. That whole plot is very underdeveloped and I was not able to buy that he fell for that woman so early, so easily without having any close moments with her. It was weird. The character of Kat also has an emotional subplot involving her relationship with her husband and her son, but that plot also felt a bit undercooked. Tenet has such a complex main plot and so much time is spent on explaining all the concepts, all the phenomena which are happening all around, that the characters become so distant that you just can't form a connection to them emotionally. And no matter how good the plot of the movie is, as a viewer we require characters that we can invest in emotionally. But Tenet lagged in this department. As mentioned earlier, Tenet is the most complex Nolan movie to date. Understanding Inception feels like a cakewalk when compared to Tenet. From the opening scene itself, Nolan throws you in this new unknown world that has rules of its own. More than half of the movie is consumed in different characters telling us about these rules, these mechanics of time inversion, the why, the words and the hows, and at some points it gets really overwhelming. फर्स्ट हाफ में तो कई जगह ऐसा लग रहा था कि कैरेक्टर्स टाइम इन्वर्जन की इंस्ट्रक्शन मैनुअल पढ़ रहे हैं ऑडियंस को समझाने के लिए, एंड स्टिल इट्स नॉट इनफ. At its core, Tenet is a time travel story, but the technique Nolan chose to show it is so complicated that even after spending almost 50% of the runtime on explaining it, most people will still not be able to figure out what the hell is happening. मुझे तो उन लोगों पे दया आ रही है जो इस मूवी को अपने घर पे लैपटॉप्स या आईपैड्स पे देखने की कोशिश करेंगे. This movie is made for the theaters because जो फोकस एंड कंसंट्रेशन हम मूवी को थिएटर्स में दे सकते हैं वो कभी भी घर पे नहीं मिल सकता. एंड जब थिएटर वालों के साथ ये हाल हो रहा है तो घर पे देखने वाले तो दीवार पे सर मार देंगे अपना. That's why I recommend that you go and experience this movie in a theater and watch it with an utter focus. तब शायद थोड़ा बहुत तुम्हें समझ आएगा. Tenet is a movie that definitely requires multiple viewings to capture every detail, every imagery, every dialogue. But I have a feeling that even then most questions will remain unanswered and plot holes will remain unfilled. Tenet has two types of questions, the what and the how. The question of what is happening is much more easier to understand, but the question of how is it happening is so convoluted to understand that it feels that the effort put into understand is not rewarding enough. At the end of the movie, a recurring question is answered that explains lots of things, but it didn't feel anything new. I honestly was confident that Nolan will answer that question in a unique way, but when it happened exactly the way I had expected, I felt a bit disappointed. There is a scene in the first half when a character, while explaining time inversion to the protagonist, tells him you don't have to understand it, you just have to feel it. I think that applies to the movie too. You don't have to understand every bit of it, you just have to appreciate and enjoy the technical brilliance of it. Even if you put the shortcomings of the plot and the characters aside, the action, the choreography, the cinematography, the music is enough to make Tenet an extremely satisfying watch and a unique cinema-going experience. Christopher Nolan doesn't have to compete with his contemporary filmmakers and the cinema around him, because nobody is doing or even thinking of doing what he can do with his movies. He just has to compete with himself now. The Nolan who made Tenet has to compete with the Nolan who has made movies like Inception, Interstellar, Prestige and Dunkirk. So basically the present Nolan is fighting with his past self. A little time travel pun for you. And in this fight with his past self, the present Nolan came a bit short. I'm going to give Tenet a 4.5 out of 6. It definitely has flaws, but it's so massive, so fascinating that I think every movie geek should go to a theater and experience it. Because that's what it is, an experience. So guys, that was it for today. If you agree with my views, do strike that like and consider to subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Till then, bye.